Legal systems don't specify exactly what a joint venture is. Unlike a company, where we can look at a Companies Act, which tell us exactly what a company is, joint venture is not defined. A joint venture has been described as rather like a camel, the animal with the humps. People say a camel must have been designed by a committee and assembled with spare parts. That's why it looks so peculiar. A joint venture is the same. It's designed by committees, several committees of potential joint venture partners, and then it's assembled with spare parts because it takes the surplus resources of each of the joint venture partners and puts them into an incorporated joint venture. And therefore it's not legally specified in any jurisdiction, unlike a company. Therefore, when you incorporate a joint venture, it'll take the rules and regulations of the country of incorporation. There may be problems if you're trying to incorporate several joint ventures in different jurisdictions. You need very clear tax advice and legal advice if you're going to do that, because it is important that you incorporate the joint ventures in the right order. Otherwise, there are tax implications if you don't. And then as a general point, when negotiating with the other parties coming from different jurisdictions, we need to be very careful not to use phrases and words which may have a legal meaning in other jurisdictions. For example, a statement of intent. If you say you've got a statement of intent, in some jurisdictions that means you just may do it or you may not do it. But at the present time, you think you probably will. But in other jurisdictions, it may mean that you're definitely going to do it. And there'll be misunderstanding if we use these phrases which can have a technical meaning. A word like partnership should never be used unless you know precisely which jurisdiction you're talking about. It's a legal term which has different meanings in different jurisdictions. So it comes down then, the first decision that we take is who drafts the agreements. Now, if it's a sale and purchase agreement, a company buying another company, if it's going to be a private sale, the sale and purchase agreement is usually drafted by the buyer's lawyers. If it's going to be a public auction, the sale and purchase agreement, the first draft, is usually produced by the seller's lawyers. It's not clear who drafts the agreements for a joint venture or a strategic alliance. You could argue it both ways. If you have your own lawyers draft the agreement, it's going to be more expensive because they're doing a lot of the work. But on the other hand, you know precisely what's in it. And looking at any legal agreement is always much easier to check what should be in it rather than check what's not in it. Look for the omissions. And if it's your agreement, you know your lawyers have put in what you want. On the other hand, if the other side drafts the agreement, it's maybe less cost, but it's much more difficult to spot what's being missed out. And so you can choose either, really. You can choose either. Now there's quite a number of large differences between common law and civil law. The two systems are converging, but they still have important differences we should bear in mind. First of all, there's a difference of concept of pre-contractual behaviour. This is when the parties are negotiating with each other prior to signing the contract. Under common law, English common law, and the common law of different countries that will use common law, you can negotiate much more toughly with the other side. You don't have to deal with the other side in good faith. That sounds bad, but under common law, you don't have to deal with your counterparty in good faith during the negotiations. You mustn't deal in bad faith, which means you're deliberately misleading them and fraudulently making comments you know to be untrue, which you know the other side's going to act on, but you don't have to deal with them in good faith. Consequently, you can take the other side all the way to the wire on the contract, letting them believe that you are going to pay them this amount of money, you're going to do that, and you're going to do this, but right at the end, you can change your mind. Just like if you're buying a company, you can say you're going to pay 12 million, and right at the end you say, well, actually I'm not. And for no reason at all, you can say, I'm going to pay 10. Take it or leave it. You can't do that without consequences under civil law. Under civil law,